Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just playing around for fun. Let's put on AMC. This is total entertainment purposes. I just think it's interesting. So AMC and Carr had very similar. They both had these two big mounds, like rolling over. Both went to all-time lows, and then they both, had similar squeezes in 2021. Not time-wise, but levels. So if something similar happened, and the AMC's first leg kind of caught up to Carr's price, right? See how I aligned the prices here? See the lows of Carr and the lows of AMC, and then the highs are kind of aligned. So AMC's first run went into Carr's price. So if AMC is obviously the blue overlaid onto Carr, this is a separate fractal down here. Um, so if AMC went now, that would say it would go into Carr's price the first move up, right? Just saying similarities, 153, somewhere like that, right? And then pull way back, and then go to near Carr's high up here, which would put AMC at um, exactly look at it up there on the left, 392. Exactly retest double topping at all time highs. Crazy, right? It's kind of weird, but it's just I'm just messing around. So turn that off. What I did with Carr was kind of curious. Is I inverted the fractal. See how that's a mirror, kind of from when AMC kind of came into business, kind of thing. From this first these two mounds and then the all-time low or this low major low. So you can see it's mirrored. It's the same fractal, but it's inverted. And then I drug it over here, and look what happened. It pretty much repeated inverse. It inverted this whole thing from kind of 2013, 14 to 2021 inverted low. It repeated but inverse, right? Pretty crazy, right? Look at that. I mean, it has this high. Look at this. If I line it up, it's a little stretched. I could stretch it a little more, but I'm not going to. If you use this fractal, you would have done pretty well. It's inverted here, and it's not so accurate here, but the main thing is just the highs and the timing are not far off. It's not bad. And then does that mean that Carr's going back down to $62 now? So let me go to AMC, and let's do the same thing, right? We're taking the inverse of 2021, and we're just, it's the same thing, right? We're putting it over here. And just I was kind of putting it in the middle of the chart, just to have, and kind of timing it with AMC's all-time low for kind of timing it the same that Carr was. And it's saying that AMC should be somewhere up here right now, around 141. I think 192 would be fair. So does that mean that it's going to time a peak, and then time a second, and then it would say the second peak would be in February 2027. It'd be 600, right? And the first peak should be somewhere around here between 137, and I have 192.05 as the top of my trend channel. I did my channels the same as 2021, and that would put us somewhere around 192.05 for a high. I have 114 on the low side. So those two things that I plotted out just a few days ago, look how they fit in here with this fractal. 114 is right here, and on this where this fractal, like right where we're just timing it, where AMC is now, and where the fractal is right at 146, 135 to 146 is where this inverted fractal is right now. So if we get over here to January 2027, it hits 580, 631. So is that timing our two runs? Or is that telling us where we're going to gap to? I don't know. I don't know. But it's interesting. I'm bored. I'm bored. I don't believe in fractals, but I believe look at this thing, how it matches the fib. That's what's crazy. Look at the 618. I mean, that's what's crazy because look at the top of my channel and look at a false break the top of the channel, retry, and fall straight to the bottom of my channel I already had it. That's when it gets crazy. That's when I'm like, well, I'll just leave it there just for the fun, the fun of it, right? Um, so did it time this low over here? Well, it was low here, and then it went up here, right? For this part, this rally, it went up, and then it went to another low. It could have let you know a low's coming, and then it kind of chopped here, right? It chopped, it pulled back, and then it goes on a run, and then it's like uptime, right? So when did it hit the first? Well, it hit a low here, so it warned you of a low, and then it hit a low here, so it warned you of another low, and then it all of a sudden hit a higher, you know, it broke out of that range. It came off the lows, right? So for the first time on this inverse fractal, it said you're going up. You went up, and then it says you're going to continue to go up, right? From there, and you're going to reach a peak somewhere in January 2027 of possibly new all-time highs, or yeah, well, this chart is new all-time highs, right? Of somewhere about 670 or something, right? Interesting, right? Um, the fact that it fit into the fibs like that, and the fact that it matched my channel, like you false broke, came back, made a lower high, and then double topped right on the channel and then slammed all the way down to the channel. That is what kind of made me like, what the. Anyway, it's just for fun, entertainment, and while we're waiting for the run. Like, if AMC does not run tomorrow, I just don't. I'm listless. It did everything. Like, let me go over that real quick. So of course, like I told you, I had my Apex like this morning, right? But for some reason, whenever I do an Apex on Thinkorswim or on TradingView even, it just keeps it extends like 6 to 8 hours at least past. It extends hours past. Like the day before, it'll show that it crosses here, but then that morning it'll show different, and then after. But it did, in theory, this did a perfect apex test today, a false break right on the. I haven't changed my lines, so it did a liquidity grab right on the apex, right on the. And now it's what did I say on the earlier video? We could crawl down this line a little bit. So the apex just moved from what I didn't move it, guys. I had my apex around 6:30 a.m. I believe this morning, and the real apex came in at like 10 a.m. So it was off by 4 hours. But yesterday it showed perfectly accurate. And today, these lines just when I look at this chart on my cell phone, on Thinkorswim on my cell phone, it's more accurate for some reason, like of the real apex. And there's some kind of flaw in Thinkorswim and for timing lines. So a lot of times I try to do timing lines like this just to. It's not going to be. It doesn't change anything. It just gives you an idea. This is probably our final dip, our final back test. If this structure is proven true, right? This whole thing that we've been working on since March, if this whole structure is complete, and you know what the structure is though. It's an inverse of the inverse. So you've got a broadening pattern here, and then you have a shrinking pattern here, right? You have you went from the low and you made a broadening pattern on the lows, and then you came from this high and you made it a wedge, right? Or a what do you call these? I hate them. Pennant, wedge, bull flag, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of times, guys, that's kind of how a pattern completes, right? It doesn't. Does it always make sense, or do you always see it that way? No, but it goes from being real wide down to being real small, and then that's your completion, and then just go, right? So it was what happened down here. You got real small, and you went up, and then you went wide down, wide up, wide down, the widest up, the wider down, and then you came up to this top, and then ever since then you've been getting real small. And another thing is, let me grab my drawing tool real quick. Let me just copy this and show you something that AMC's had in the past that played out in 2021. To me, the bottom was just a big W pattern, WV. You could say you have some type of, you know, WV here. Um, See that? It's kind of wonky, but whatever it is, yeah, you could say it's like a wonky WV, but how do you confirm that? Well, look at this small pattern. It's actually very good. And the small patterns to me, guys, are always at the end of a consolidation. That's the most bullish. That you kind of you take the big pattern and then you do a small version of the bigger pattern. So look what we just did here. This went here, here, here. You did like a big kind of W, V, right? And then look at the small one. And then you did a small W, V, right? You got it? Yeah, I put the extra lines in here. You don't have to have those. You could just put, but it's still the same pattern either way. I thought that was really interesting because did you do it over here? Not really. Like I said, what I was saying is this is widening here. This was broad. See how it's a broadening pattern, and then it hit the top, and then it was over. So the broadening pattern ended, and then you went into this double WV pattern, what I tell people always is the big patterns are not bullish, guys. They're like, um, look, see this big pattern? It's hard to make money on the big pattern unless you're just straight going calls, puts, calls, puts. But for me, when you're coming to the end of something, and then this one goes into a tightening pattern at the end, right? So you went from a broadening to a tightening, and that shows that this whole thing, it's like a diamond, right? If you're to put them together in your own mind, you had a broadening wedge hooked together with another kind of like a pennant, and if they're together, they make like a diamond, which is like a diamond bottom, which is like or just a bottom. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a thing. But yeah, that to me says we're done. We're done, done, done. I know people now are telling me everybody always does this with the AMC crowd. They start saying like, oh, now it's October, or it just means they bought calls in October. I already know how this works. So it's funny because when somebody buys their calls or whatever, they're just like, oh, now it's October. So that's what everybody AMC. We're so used to extending it that it's like everybody's like, no, it's October now. It's not even August. It's not even September. No, guys, it has to happen at the end of the month. So if it doesn't happen right now, it's the end of September. So and then you should hit your low after the run around the 8th to 12th. So if we're doing the same thing as I think we're doing, so yeah, so you should hit a pretty extreme low somewhere between the 8th and 12th. And that also goes with my market view. Guess what comes up next month, guys? September 11th. So if we hit a low around somewhere between, we might go inverse of September 11th, though, guys, because it's so long ago. So we might have a huge rally into September 11th. But as far as AMC, if it does this WV and then redoes a WV and then has a shrinking tightening pattern versus this broadening pattern was the first part of the bottom, and the last part of the bottom base was the shrinking pattern. So that's what I'm going.